First of all, it's a big honor for me to be here with you together and present my work as Ukrainian historian and also as a former Yehadin Fellow. And today I would to tell you about Kherson, about Ghettoization and mass shooting of the Jewish population during the Holocaust. Waffen-SS General Kurt Meyer wrote in his memoirs, "The skyline of Kherson could be made out of the horizon. Grain seals towered over Dnieper. The western area of the town was full of tall chimneys. Tall shady tree beckoned in front of us. The sun had scorched us. We looked forward to water and shade in the town. A few kilometers outside Kherson stood an armored car for a long time and observed the town lying before us. The city seems close enough to touch. It incited, it touched itself and seems to mock my hesitation. Modern high-rise rose in front of us. Enemy machine gun fire ripped up the air around us. The struggle for Kherson had begun. On August 19, 1941, Kherson was invaded by German troops. During the first days of occupation, the city space became a scene of crimes. Immediately behind, the German military special SS units arrived in city and began to capture the Jewish population in Ghetto and prepare a mass murder action. My main research question is, what was Jewish life like in Kherson before World War II? Why didn't many Jews evacuate? How did the German occupation affect the life of the Jews? What was the Nazi policy toward the Jews? Who determined their fate? What was the Jewish ghetto in Kherson like? And how did the perpetration of the crime take place and who was involved? Where and how did the perpetrators kill their victims? And what were the trials against perpetrators after the war? Before World War II, Kherson was a city where many Jews lived. In the early 1920s, there were 23 synagogues in the city. Among the Jews, there were many common shoemakers, merchants, doctors, businessmen, military and civil servants. At the beginning of the Soviet-German war, the part of the Jewish population was evacuated to the east, but several thousand Jews remain in the city. On August 20, 1941, Sonderkommando 11A of Eisen's Group D arrived in Kherson. Jews were ordered to sew a Jewish star on the front and back of their clothes. Failure to comply with this and other orders was punished by shooting. Then they were relocated to the ghetto, and SS Scharführer Leo von der Recke was responsible for the ghetto from its organization until its liquidation. Every day they had to work forced labor. A Jewish council was established to manage the people in the ghetto. Thus, the colonization phase was completed. As Dan Michman notes, Jewish ghettos in Europe were several types: open, closed, and extermination ghettos. According to these criteria, the ghetto in Kherson can be classified as a closed type. From the documentary correspondence of the Sonderkommando 11A, the Jewish question in its first part is solved. By order of the command, registration was carried out. After the registration of the Jews was carried out, they were gathered in several streets which were isolated. The creation of the permanent residential area was not investigated. The registration made it possible to meet all the needs of the Wehrmacht for work crews as early as the second day. Grigory Iskovich, a resident of Kherson, recalled, "I personally saw Jews being taken to the ghetto. I went to my sister Tzila and she told me to run away because all the Jews from the neighboring street had already been taken to the ghetto. I didn't even eat. Tzila gave me butter, a piece of lard and bread. and I ran away almost immediately. She stayed at home with the small child. I learned the fate of my family after the war. The Nazis killed 3 of my sister and children and my mother. Holocaust survivor Nikolai Dorozinsky recalled, Jews moved into the ghetto as the best they could. Some had duffel bags, some had a wheelbarrow. It was impossible to take everything. In the ghetto, most of them slept on the floor. They took food. There were no stores. My father took a change of underwear, pants, jacket, raincoat, soap, towel, razor, and some food. My sister Lucia went to see my father in the ghetto and told me that the conditions were terrible. There could be up to 10 people in one room. The children needed potties. There was not enough water. There was not human conditions. During its first days in Kherson, Sonderkommando 11A conducted several demonstrative mass shootings of Jews in order to intimidate the local population and oppose the partisan movement. On August 22, 400 Jewish men and women was shooting. This first mass shooting action took place in ditches near Kherson prison. Thus, in the first days of the occupation, the German command demonstrated that Jewish life meant nothing to them. On this slide, you can see the ditches behind the Kherson prison, where a demonstrative mass shooting of Jews and communists took place in late August and early September 1941. After the war, the Park of Glory of victory in World War II was built on this site, and till today it doesn't say nothing about execution Jews in this place. First, the Jews were transferred from the ghetto to the territory of the city prison. On September 26-27, 1941, the Nazis began transporting them in groups to the place of execution near city in the direction of the village Zelenovka. One of the residents of Zelenivka remembered seeing Jews in Kherson when they were transferred to prison territory. He told, Jews of Kherson were gathered and their valuables were taken from them, and then they were taken to anti-tank mode and shoot. I saw that mode and remember it being dug before the war. The report of NZ's Group D of September 26, 1941 focused on the liberation of the territory from Jews in Nikolaev and Kherson. At the moment, the Jewish question in Nikolaev and Kherson is solved. Approximately 5,000 Jews each in each city have been captured. People were led in groups to anti-tank ditches, ordered to undress and kneel down and then shoot. After the execution of the Jews, the Nazis continued to kill and bury Soviet prisoners of the war at this site. In 1944, during the work of the Soviet Extraordinary Commission at this site, were found the remains of more than 8,000 people. A monument to executed civilians between Kherson and Zelenivka opened in 1962. After the war, this and many other Nazi crimes became the subject of lawsuits. One such case was the trial against the German officer Franz Kandler. He recounted how Commissioner Matten secretly ordered all the property of the murdered Jews of the Kherson to be taken back to Germany. This was witnessed by a Jew whom Matten kept with him to sort things out. When the Jew found out about Matten's theft of Jewish property in Kherson, he told several officers about it. In conversation reached Matten. For this, he ordered Hauptsturmführer Kolter to hang this Jew, which Kotler did. I was present when the Jew was killed. But the main perpetrator escaped punishment for many years. Paul Zapp, who headed Sonderkommando 11A, forged documents and at the end of the war, he hid under the name of Friedrich Brehm until 1968, but he was discovered and brought to trial in 1970. He was accused of murdering over 13,000 people. His approach was based on the general strategy of mass murder we know as Holocaust by bullets. According to Paul Gerhardt, Typology of Criminals, Zapp was perpetrator of a worldview who knew and wanted what he was doing. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, but was released under an amnesty in 1986. During the trial, Zapp stated that during the liquidation of the ghetto in Kherson, he took into account the interest of the victims. When 5,000 people were to be killed, he ordered to use pistols instead of rifles. For the victims, this type of execution was more tolerable, because the shooting at close range guaranteed greater certainty of instant death. Also, the volleys of firing squad were less audible to the victims who were waiting their turn. So he had never repented. In conclusion, I would say that preparation and mass shooting of the Jews in Kherson took place in several stages. First, the occupation of the city by German troops, then arrival of special SS units, organization of the registration of the Jewish population and relocation of the Jews to ghetto, to use of Jews as a labor force, their demoralization, and then liquidation of the ghetto, transfer the Jews to execution site and shooting. And in the end, removal and distribution of property of murdered Jews. Responsible for the plan to kill the Jews was the command of Sonderkommand 11A, in particular Paul Zapp. Members of the Ukrainian auxiliary police and Schutzmannschaft were involved in the perpetration for the murder. The murder sites were located both inside and outside of city and were determined in advance. The main method of killing was shooting, or Holocaust by bullets, as defined by Father Patrick Dubois. And after the end of the war, some participants in this crime were persecuted. Thank you very much. I hope you have the question and we can speak in our discussion.